I have the Rockets at number three. I talked up a little bit about earlier about their offensive capabilities. That double big lineup that they have, I think, is going to be
It
lethal.
really is OKC at the tippy top. I think this team is driven and in that category where they want to be remembered as an iconic team of all time. Statistically, they have some cases for it from their regular season last year, not the postseason, as you guys mentioned. And I think that's what maybe continues to drive them. And also the fact that they don't get that media attention, maybe that makes them hungry to go out there and get some
I
media attention.
concur. And I think this is going to be a big year for Wemby. This is where we see his ascension or not, as kind of everybody's talking about, like we had a whole podcast about this, about the face of the league. But I think a lot of momentum is on his side, especially in a market that I know with the Spurs, they're dealing with the whole New York deal this past summer. I think for Wemby, I'm very interested to see where he can take the Spurs and push them up into the higher echelon of the league.
Want to give a quick shout out to all the viewers and listeners. We are a couple hundred subscribers away from our next YouTube goal. So if you have friends who would be interested in the show, share our show, help us reach that goal. We really appreciate it. And thank you again to all the new listeners, subscribers, and for those of you that have been with us for many years now at this point. Really appreciate it. We'll keep growing Hoopsology, keep growing the conversation and getting you guys these high quality conversations. So gentlemen, let's get into this. And last weekend, Justin and I got into our Eastern Conference picks. At some point, Alan, we're gonna have to get your reaction to some of that, but we'll do that maybe off air today. But we have a Western Conference to tackle. This is the presumptive, I think, champion conference this year, as it was last year. But it was pretty close. Went all the way to Game 7 in the finals, as we all know. So you never know what'll happen, but there are some big dogs in the Western Conference here, much like last year. And I think there's also some teams that are going in a lot of different directions compared to where they were last season. So once again, we're doing this format similar to the Eastern Conference. So we've got 5 teams that are our bottom feeders outside looking in. There'll be lottery teams. We've got 5 teams that are just on the edge of the playoffs and play-in tournament. And then we've got our 5 teams that are potential contenders. So we're going to go in that order. We're going to start at the bottom of the list. And for the sake of brevity, I'm going to go ahead and surmise that the projected 18.5 win Utah Jazz are the 15th team in the Western Conference. Do you guys both agree with the Jazz at spot number 15?
I do.
Justin, any disagreement?
No, I concur. ESPN has projected 20 wins. ESPN bets around over under 18.5. The Athletic has the Jazz ranked 15th. They said that this is shout out to John Hollinger, who put the Athletic list together. Utah will have one of the 4 worst records in the NBA and will do whatever it takes to ensure that happens. The Jazz owe a top 8 protected pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder, an obligation that turns into dust if they don't convey the season. By finishing in the bottom 4, the Jazz can ensure that their pick is no worse than 8th after the draft lottery. The only thing I would say is that with a lot of these teams, that you guys can, maybe I'm being overly optimistic or I'm in a really good mood, but I don't really see a lot of like horrendous teams. Even when we were talking about the Wizards last time, Alan, I think Matt and I both ranked them at the bottom. They're not like horrendous. I mean, they have Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler. I mean, those are not crap players. And then they have Ace Bailey. So he's a promising rookie. I know it could go either way, but, it could kind of backfire in terms of just purely by talent. They might overachieve. Is that possible?
You've got good coaching too. And that's Will Hardy's a good coach. It's kind of funny. Some of these bottom teams have really good coaches and some of the top teams, not so much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
True.
Yeah, it's all part of the plan here in Utah. I wouldn't be surprised this season, to be honest, if we had like the worst team in the league right at 20 wins or so, or like right on the borderline. I don't think we're gonna have like a 14 win Wizards team like we had, or I'm sorry, an 18 win Wizards team like we had last year. I think teams are moving a little closer together. There's still going to be some separation at the top, especially in the Western Conference, as we'll talk about. Let me move right into 14, and we can see if you guys agree with me or not, because I think we're all on the same page with Utah and their goals. 14 for me is going to be a team that I haven't trusted in a long time, and it seems like things are getting worse there. Despite the optimism with Zion this offseason, I've got the Pelicans at 14. Did either of you guys have them as your next pick?
I did. I've been trying to believe in the Pelicans, trying to believe in Zion. It's over for me. ESPN has projected 32 and 0.6 wins on their list. The Pelicans are ranked 14th as well. I just am not into this team at all. The Athletic has them at 13. Interesting. The Athletic has a little bit higher. They said, despite this serial mismanagement over the past several months, it's possible to construct a scenario where the encore division of the season's Pelicans ends up being somewhere between halfway decent and generally good. And we've seen with Zion Williamson, he's gotten skinnier, but at the same time, is it too little too late in terms of what he can bring? I don't know. I'm kind of over this team at this point.
Alan, are you going to talk us into the Pelicans at 14 or out of the Pelicans at 14?
No. Pelicans are where they are. I don't have a lot of, I think I think Fears is a nice player. We'll see kind of how he does, but they're not making waves this year.
All right. So far we're 2 for 2 with agreement here. Next at 13, I'm going to throw to you guys and submit humbly the Phoenix Suns, who had a major facelift this offseason. Justin, do you agree with me, Phoenix at 13, or are you looking at someone else?
Yeah, we're aligned still. Projected wins from ESPN, 34.7. ESPN Bet has it. The over-under around 31.5. The Athletic has them ranked 12th. This is from them. They said when they project to be better than their total, I get the logic that Phoenix won 36 games last season, then subtracted Kevin Durant. However, the Suns were probably due for some degree of bounce back after underperforming their expectations a season ago, and Durant's value at this stage of his career is likely overstated, which is very interesting. I disagree with that if he can remain healthy. It's also worth remembering that Phoenix will have no incentive to accumulate losses late in the season because the team's draft pick has been swapped to the point of irrelevance. So it's just the good news that the Suns seem to somewhat realize how bad a shape they're in. The bad news is that they're still in bad shape. They don't have control of their first-round pick until 2032, holy moly, presuming that they get it unfrozen and have a roster that'd be hard-pressed to stay in playoff contention in the rugged West. So I guess my question for this team is kind of, what is their projection now that Durant is gone and that this experiment that they had of their own big three is over? Do they completely blow it up? Can they? Or are they just going to kind of stay in this kind of weird mediocrity? Like, what can they do? Like, can they kind of just start from scratch, or do they kind of have to, like, overcome this kind of situation that they're in to really start over and start fresh?
Alan, go ahead and jump in.
I think they're stuck unless they trade Booker.
They need a free agent.
Yeah.
They need a free agent, right?
They need a free agent and they need draft picks. They don't have anything. They're just stuck. I think they made some good moves on the margins. And then they made some perplexing moves on the margins. It seems like a team that has like two different people telling them what to do in the front office. And it just doesn't seem like a good vibe there. Feel bad for Jalen Green. So we'll see. Maybe he gets unleashed a little bit, but we'll see.
Yeah, questionable depth and fit at the guard and center positions. So it's going to be interesting. Alan, just curiously, do you have Phoenix at 13 as well, or do you have them a little higher on your list?
I have them just one higher because I've got I kind of back and forth. I've got maybe a surprising one at 13. Just because there's a team that I don't really have a lot of hope in, and I And I think they won't do well on a stacked West.
All right, go ahead and give it to us.
Sacramento
I want to
Kings.
hear. We finally have disagreement, so
Sacramento
so that's
Kings.
good. The
Ooh.
Kings. I thought about this too.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I-
Go ahead.
Where-
State your case.
I think they're the Chicago Bulls, except they're like 3 years older than the last time the Bulls were kind of relevant. They just signed another aging guard today with Russell Westbrook, which was an expected signing. I think everybody knew he was going to end up in Sacramento. Um, I don't know where that team's going. They don't have an identity, and they have a lot of empty calorie players on their roster right now.
That's a good way to put it, and I have love for Russ, but man, this roster I think is one of the rosters at the top of the list I'd have to look at that I don't want you to join this roster, because in becoming the homage Western Conference Chicago Bulls, they really had a weird fit last year, as we've talked about on the show. And now adding Westbrook to that, I mean, he's not adding the perimeter shooting that they need. He's not, I mean, maybe there are those little chemistry things he can add in terms of hustle and just being a good guy that most reports always say about him as a teammate. But man, I don't know that that's enough to translate to wins on the court. So I'll be honest, I have Sacramento just kind of equaling their wins total from slight dip. So they had 40 wins last season. I have them down at around 34, which oddly was good enough for 11th on my list. But I don't think this is a ridiculous pick. I mean, you could see an injury or two really impacting this team. And then there are questions if players on that current roster are kind of at their ceiling. They could be kind of dead in the water depending on how this shakes out.
Wasn't their best shooter injured to start the season also? Keegan Murray?
I believe so.
Like a UCL tear, right? Yeah. I don't know how long it takes to recover from a UCL. I've never really heard of that injury before this year when a bunch of players started getting it. So,
yep. Justin, I want to throw to you for your number 12 pick. So
Sure.
we've got, Justin, you and I had Phoenix at 13. Alan's got Sacramento, which again, I think is certainly within the realm of possibility. Justin, who do you have at number 12?
Yeah, I got Portland. I think, yeah, we're boring. I think my picks get a little bit more interesting as we move up to the top here. Hopefully, we'll see. But with Portland, ESPN has them projected as 35.8 wins. ESPN bet over under 33.5. ESPN says why they project to be better than their total. Portland won 36 games last season, then upgraded in their projections by swapping Anthony Simons for Drew Holiday. I think that's a pretty big upgrade. The market is right to be skeptical about Portland's 23-18 second half, driven by poor opponent three-point shooting, 34% second lowest in the NBA, which typically doesn't carry over. The Athletic has them way worse. They have them 14th, only having 31 wins. So they said the Blazers have youth on their side, but lack the lack of offensive talent. And I agree. I think with Portland, it's kind of like now, especially, Damian Lillard's back, but he's hurt and he's older. So it's just like, what is the future of this team with an older Dame Dollar on your team? I don't know. I just don't really get the future of this franchise. I hope their WNBA team fares better. I think they should probably put more hopes into the Portland Fire than the Blazers. But yeah, 12 is where I got them. I think they'll be somewhat decently competitive in some games, but mostly at the bottom.
So, Alan, you have Phoenix at 12. Is Portland your 11 team?
they are. Yeah.
Okay, right on. Give us some thoughts on Portland as well, because there's a lot going on here that Justin brought up.
I mean, I went back and forth with those guys, but I think Portland, and I realize that the 3-point percentage and how that factors into kind of what people are looking at, but that 3-point percentage was also low because Portland really switched over to playing a really strong swarming wing defense. I think and like I'm gonna make a crazy prediction here, but point guard is the hardest position to learn in the league. And if you spend some time injured, it can really kind of halt your progress a little bit. I think this is the year Scoot finally breaks out. He's got Drew there. He's got a coach who knows what it's like to kind of struggle your first couple of years in the league before becoming a superstar. And then they've got their young draft pick, the surprise draft pick, who I think is going to spend most of the time in the G League, but I think they've got a pretty decently sized team that I think can potentially run some double big lineups that I think can harm some other teams out there. That's why I had Portland a little higher than Phoenix and Sacramento.
I kind of hope you're right. I mean, I would like to see the Portland team be exciting, especially with their rookie draft class coming in. That could be really fun to watch. The question I have also that I'll just kind of add into the mix is, what is Drew Holiday's season really going to look like? He's been on bona fide contenders for such a long stretch now and a key contributor to those teams that going in Portland, no doubt his experience and leadership, that's going to be valuable. But is it going to be more like a support from the bench, kind of more chilling a little bit kind of year for Drew Holiday? Or what is that season going to look like? I'm just very curious to see.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I don't know. I have high hopes for a Fred VanVleet like season for him, where he makes them a little bit better by tutoring and mentoring. And we all know Drew's a good guy and a good leader. He's a proven winner. I actually really like that move for them.
I do too. I think he'll add some value. I'm just not sure if it's going to be in the form of like wins or losses this year, but I think you're right, especially with their guard lineup. You could certainly argue, I think, that Anthony Simons had more long-term value, but I understand kind of the move from both sides. Obviously, the Celtics getting off some money there, and it does seem to make sense for Portland to get his leadership there. Okay, so it seems like we have all the same bottom feeders. Correct me if I'm wrong. We've got Utah, New Orleans, Phoenix, Portland, and Sacramento in some order there.
Yeah.
So we are in total alignment on our bottom feeders in the West. I don't think that's all that shocking. Let me give you guys my number 10. So this will be the first team in our play-in category. I think this team is doing a slight reset this year. I have questions about them, and I'm not sure if they're going to have a winning record. I think they're going to be right on the borderline depending on how things shake out, but it's a volatile team, and now you guys probably know I'm talking about the Memphis Grizzlies at number 10. Do I have any agreement with the number 10 pick, or should I move on to ask you guys your picks?
We slightly differ, but I have a controversial number 10 if Alan wants to go.
Now you go, Justin. Let's hear your
I have the Timberwolves at number 10.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
This is big disagreement compared to my list. I like it.
I do not like the Timberwolves at all. Now I have to say I am taking a huge risk because ESPN has them at 43. Really, honestly, ESPN has them at 43.7 wins, which is, considering for a Western Conference contender and their success, not that much. Their over/under totals 49.5, and the Athletic has them ranked 5th and having winning 49 games. So I am taking a huge risk here. Here's what the Athletic has to say. The Wolves finished 6th in the West last season with 49 wins. When he ran the numbers last year, he was surprised to learn that Minnesota was projected to finish there. Yet the broad outlines are largely the same. The Wolves are tough, big, expensive, and not that deep. And I think that's my problem with this team. And I just think with the depth here, like with the teams that I see above them, even the Clippers, which I despise, quite honestly. Let's do the history of this podcast. I can't really see myself putting the Timberwolves above any other team, in my opinion. I lost faith in him, and I really lost faith in Anthony Edwards as a premier a leader in this league. I really have. I think he'll be good in terms of the regular season, but as a premier star, I just don't think he has what it takes. I've just seen it through just watching him on like the Olympic team and then just certain parts of the season and everything and what I hear kind of off the court. I'm just not feeling this team too much. I don't know. Maybe they'll be number 1 seed. Who the hell knows? But I'm not feeling this team, and that's why they're 10th on my list.
Justin, my mouth is on fire from that spicy take you just gave. I don't even know where to go with that. We will talk about the Timberwolves a little bit more. Alan, I guess I want to just throw to you for your number 10 pick. Let's get all our number 10s out on the table.
I think this one's going to be kind of a head scratcher too. I am not in love with the Clippers. I know a lot of people are, but I think they're an aging team and an injury-prone team. And and they've got a lot of controversy now hanging over their head. I just don't think they're looking to have a great season.
Alan, I'm with you. I always put them in the opposite spot. I agree.
And like, is a ball going to drop with Kawhi Leonard? Like, all of a sudden, is that contract going to be voided? Like, what are we looking at with that? It's hard to project with them, even though on paper, like, I love the name recognition of a lot of their signings. It's so up in the air. So I can definitely understand that. All right, so I've got the Grizzlies at 10. Justin's got the Timberwolves. Alan's got the Clippers. Let's just keep pressing up our list, and we'll keep talking about those teams here and there as we go. Alan, I'll just go snake draft right back to you for your number 9 pick.
This one's a little controversial too, because I think people have these guys rated a lot higher. I have the Spurs at number 9.
Ooh, man! All right. I love this. This is a lot different. There's a lot more variance here compared to Justin and my Eastern Conference list. Yeah, so I love this. Tell me more about the Spurs.
I don't trust them yet. I think Wemby's great, but even when he was healthy, they were, last year they weren't like burning up the records, and I know that he and Fox have only played a little bit together, but actually I'm a little down on Fox also. I think to my mind, he's kind of a placeholder until Dylan Harper's ready to go. I'm pretty high on Dylan Harper, by the way. I think he's got the tools. He just needs time. So I just don't think it's their year this year. And honestly, I'm a little concerned about Wemby's health. So we'll have to see if all of the stuff he did over the summer is going to help him to play a full season. But he's still, I think he's still going to struggle against stronger bigs. He's got the length, but he's going to get in foul trouble against guys like Şengün, and Karl Anthony Towns, and Hartenstein, and of course Jokic. He's going to struggle against guys that are strong, because he's still just very slight frame. So yeah, it's my take.
Alan, I love that you're not getting the recency bias. I mean, there's a lot of people out there right now that have Wemby like penciled in for MVP, and the Spurs making a deep playoff run just based on a few preseason matchups. So 34 wins last year for the Spurs. I believe they're projected around 44 wins this year. I think their over-under is somewhere around there. So that would be a dramatic change for them. And you never know. It's tough because you're sort of like betting on Wemby's health. I think it seems like the progression is there in terms of his individual talent, but will he be able to play all those games? Justin, let's go right into your number 9 pick, because I'm guessing it's also different.
Yeah, 9, I got the Grizzlies.
Okay.
I feel with like the Grizzlies, Timberwolves, and I'm going to spoil it, number 8 with the Clippers. I just feel like they're kind of like interchangeable at this point. But I feel like with the Grizzlies, like the Athletic said, and they have them ranked 10th, having winning 39 games this season. It's a recharging year, and they lost Desmond Bane. So I just feel like with Ja Morant, they're always going to be a factor. But I think this is going to be a season where they try to strategize what type of resources are they going to need to build this team around Ja? And really, the future of Ja with his franchise has been kind of rocky. He had a lot of promise, and then had his legal troubles. And I just think at some point, from the human factor, it might be best for Morant whenever he becomes a free agent. I don't know his contract status, but you know how people are. They want a new, fresh coat of paint. They want to go somewhere else. So I'm just wondering, kind of, what are they going to do to entice Ja Morant to kind of stay there and kind of build the core? So that's why I have them at number 9, because I feel like they have a really good home court. And I feel like Ja Morant, when he has his head on straight, is still one of the best players in the league. So that's why I have him number 9.
Gotcha. And obviously I'm in somewhat agreement since I had them at 10. I'm not too high on them. Alan, what are you thinking about the Grizzlies this year? You don't have to tell us your ranking of them yet, but just general thoughts on the Grizzlies.
I mean, I'll spoil it. It's their number 8.
Okay.
So they were going to be next anyway. I agree with everything you've all said. I just had them. I think these 4 teams that we're talking about are pretty interchangeable. And I went back and forth on those, but I put the Grizzlies here because I feel like their offense will be a little bit better, but I think the health is always going to be a question for both JJJ and Ja. I mean, so we'll have to see kind of what the season brings.
Right on. Yeah. A lot of points. I think we all agree on there. I'm going to go ahead and spoil my number 9, and I'm going to make some people mad with this one. Brian Tong, please don't watch this portion of the show because I love you, man.
Uh-oh.
I got the Warriors at number 9.
Ooh, I like it. Yeah.
I don't buy it, you guys. Like, I don't know. They got Kuminga back. Cool. Congrats. But Curry's 37. Jimmy Butler, it's not a contract year, so maybe you'll get good version of Jimmy Butler. Draymond Green, how much is left there really? I don't know. I don't buy this team all that much. I don't see them as much of a threat. And any one of these guys spending significant time on the sidelines is really going to hurt this team. And I think there's a high chance, unfortunately, that could happen. And I don't see them having the backups in place to sustain them over long periods of time, missing any one of those 3 key players that I mentioned. So Father Time catches up to everyone. And I don't know. I know they had that run with Jimmy Butler. I know things looked good for a stretch there. They barely escaped the Rockets in that first round, being a much more experienced team than that Rockets team. I don't know. I'm low on the Grizzlies, guys. You can totally hate on that pick if you want to, but let's see how this all plays out. So that's my number 9 there. I guess we got Allen's number 8 pick. So, Justin, let me throw to your number 8 pick. Who's next up on your list?
Not much. I agree with what Alan said about the Clippers. I echo every sentiment that he had to say. I'll just add that The Athletic has them finishing number 2 with 54 wins. They said the Clippers are one of the NBA's most pleasant surprises last season, shrugging off the loss of Paul George and winning 50 games. As a result, dodging the consequences of paying him extravagantly through his declining years. And it says, in terms of basketball, there's a strong case that could be made that LA will be even better this season, even if James Harden and Zubac will be hard-pressed to match the seasons that they delivered last year. But I just think I agree with Alan. This is, honestly, I'm trying to think, the Clippers and then the Heat. But honestly, I think the Heat, I really hate this team. I'm sorry. It's really grown since we've done this podcast. I just think they're such a fraud team and they're soft. And I just feel like whatever version of this team goes out there and however many wins they have, they always just fold. And that's been even before the podcast started, just with the Chris Paul years. I just feel like they're just a soft team. They're soft. And that continues no matter the ownership, no matter the new arena, which is awesome. They're just a soft team, and that's why they're number 8. They'll just win games just because of talent and just other teams resting their dudes. But in terms of them being any type of a threat, I don't see it at all. Yeah.
Now, someone or something made Justin angry before the show, and I
don't know.
absolutely love it. I love it.
It's years of pent up frustration about this team. You should know.
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, there was a few years ago, like Zach Lowe picked them as his
right.
NBA champ. And that was, of course, a pretty disappointing season. Justin, we said last year, I mean, one of the mottos of the show is do not pick the Clippers.
Yeah.
So yes, you can lock it in. I did not pick the Clippers in my top three. Certainly, I'll hold off on spoiling where I put them. But yeah, this is very interesting. You guys both have the Clippers lower than I do. So and I full on believe the motto that I just said. So this is great. I think, okay, so we know your guys 10 through 8 picks. So I'm going to give you my number 8 pick. And it's a team with a lot of question marks as well. Really, to get to where they are projected right now, it's just over a winning record. And I think that they'll do that. And I think that gets them in the number 8 spot. It's a team we haven't even mentioned yet. It's the Dallas Mavericks. I've got them here. There's a lot of things I actually really like about this team, oddly, even though they just did that disastrous Luka trade. And when is Kyrie going to return, and what's that going to look like is, I think, the big question mark here. How effective will Cooper Flagg be in the early going once we get into the regular season? If Cooper Flagg seems like he's already a bona fide starter-worthy player, I think Dallas could even ascend where I have them marked here at the number 8 spot. Some of this, I'm also kind of tempering expectations. Are we going to have an Anthony Davis injury? Those types of things too all come into question here. But I've got Dallas at number 8. So I guess, Alan, was it the Clippers at number 8?
No, it was the Grizzlies.
Oh, my apologies. Yeah, Grizzlies. So let's go into your number 7 and keep moving up our lists here.
My number 7 is your number 8, so I don't think we're very far off on that. And for a lot of the same reasons. Look, I've been a guy who's kind of gone after Jason Kidd, not going after him, but just criticized his coaching style, particularly his years in Milwaukee. But I actually think he's turned into a pretty good coach. So I think they'll be competitive, even if they lose AD for any significant amount of time. But not having Kyrie absolutely hurts. I'm not sold on Cooper Flagg yet. I have to see him play in the league and see him actually play in some NBA games and get the reps before I'm really a fan of his yet. So we'll see kind of what he can do. So that's where I'm at with them.
Absolutely. Justin, you're number 7?
Yeah, we're in alignment. The Mavericks are number 7, and I was really torn to putting them further down, but after I've heard about Cooper Flagg and just the hype that I hear about his intelligence, in terms of just his basketball IQ, that's kind of put it a little bit over the top for me and putting them in this number 7 position. And like you're selling, Alan, you made an excellent point about Jason Kidd. I mean, last year, look at the turmoil of just that Luka trade. I mean, that was a complete disaster. Look how well they did. I mean, all the injuries, just the fan base, everything that happened. I think they overachieved. The Athletic has him in number 9, so it's about what and what. Finishing with 41 wins. Projected wins on ESPN is about 43. So, yeah, I think with Mavericks, believe it or not, they had a basketball miracle in getting Cooper Flagg somehow. And I think that's why they're in this number 7 position for me.
Yeah, it seems like, I don't know, like if you're just asking them to have a winning season, that seems, if we can assume decent health from this team, which maybe you can't, it seems like that's very reasonable to imagine they could have a winning record. I'll go ahead and share my number 7 as we move along. And for me, it's the San Antonio Spurs. Again, I'm hesitant. I could potentially put them higher and see that as reasonable, but I have a lot of those same questions that you have, Alan. I guess I'm just planning on Wembanyama staying around for a good chunk of the season, and that's what I'm betting on, to have them a few spots higher than you have them. You could definitely see this go south very quickly if the right conditions are met. So hopefully we have a good, healthy year for Wemby. I think if we do, it's pretty reasonable to put them at least at the top of the play-in where I have them, or maybe even locked into the playoffs. But that's why they play the games, as they say. Justin, I'll throw right back to you for your number 6 team on your list.
Yeah, I got the Spurs. I really wanted to pick them higher. I couldn't do it. But I am a believer in Wemby. I really am. And honestly, if this doesn't work out, this is probably the last big man I'm going to really believe in, because I believe in Joel Embiid, and it ended terribly. So I think I'm going with, I just really believe in Wemby's skill set and his mindset. ESPN has him projected at 40 wins. The Athletic has him at number 7 with 46. So it's about within that 40 to 46 range. But they have a lot of youth, which I like. Unproven. So I think there's a lot of potential in terms of this franchise developing an identity around Wemby for the first time, and kind of moving on from like any other eras, and officially, pushing in this kind of new Wemby era. And I'm very excited to see what happens with some new rookies, with Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle, just to see how they all move around him. And I know, Alan, you were talking about how De'Aaron Fox, you're not really high on him in terms. He's also nursing a hamstring injury as well. So I just think I do like the youth, and I think that is why I'm kind of high on him. Honestly, your guys' Rockets have really the Thunder. I think that's kind of the new way of this league, is really building young around a core superstar, and then seeing their continuity move from year to year. So that's why I'm pretty much more optimistic on the Spurs, just based on other teams in the league.
Alan, who do you got at number 6 on your list?
Warriors. Yeah, and not based on their current roster either. I'm betting on the Kuminga trade.
Maybe more.
I'm betting on the Kuminga trade is going to net them a veteran. They're going to mortgage their future in order to go make another run at the title. So that's
might as well.
Yeah. So I have them at 6 for that.
Awesome. Number 6 on my list, just to circle around here, this is where I finally put the Clippers. I kind of felt like, all right, they've got Coach Lue. Depth is looking really good. It's probably a little bit overrated, just based on the name recognition of that depth. Like how good truly is Bradley Beal right now? How good truly is Brook Lopez right now? But these are, so some pretty talented pieces historically. I just guess I kind of figured, well, with Ty Lue at the helm and all these pieces, I think I can pencil them into the playoffs. We'll see. I kind of honestly rather see them at like 9th or 10th. I don't particularly enjoy the Clippers either. I'm sorry, you guys. It's been since like Blake Griffin, at least, since I last enjoyed this team. So we'll see how that goes. Justin, why don't we go into your number 5 pick?
Yeah, I got the Lakers. Last year they had a record of 50 wins, 32 losses, 3rd in the West, and I think really overachieved in the regular season, losing in the first round. Their projected wins are around 45 from ESPN. ESPN says this is what they project to be worse than their total. It says that this is an annual occurrence for the Lakers, whose line benefits from their popularity, particularly in Vegas. On average, the Lakers finished 5.7 wins below their total since 2013-14, the biggest gap for any team. There certainly is a reason to believe in the Lakers to hit their mark if Luka Doncic plays at an MVP level in his first full season, but the Lakers are far away from the league's top heaviest team, with just 4 players projected above the league average. The other teams with fewer than 5, the Nets, the Jazz, the Wizards, all pegged for the lottery. So I don't know. I am a believer of LeBron and Luka Doncic. But yeah, I think this is an awfully risky pick. I think, you're talking about some other teams with one injury. I think the Lakers apply to that. One injury and I think they're finished. I don't really like their additions they had with Marcus Smart, I guess. And then DeAndre Jordan. Just DeAndre Ayton. Sorry, my apologies. And then Jake Ray Lavavia. Probably butchering that name.
Laravia.
Laravia. And they lose Dorian Finney-Smith, Jordan Goodwin, Trey Jameson III, Alex Lynn, Shake Milton, and then unsigned free agents, Markieff Morris. So, yeah, I just think this is an awfully risky pick, but I am a believer in Luka, and I do think with LeBron, I do think that's enough to get him to 5th seed. Now, we're talking about the playoffs. It's a whole different issue. But I think in terms of just regular season wins, I think that's enough to get him to 5th seed. But again, one injury, they're toast. So
quickly, Justin, we're in agreement here because I've got the Lakers at 5th as well. So just wanted to add that in. My concern is with LeBron looking things over and deciding if he wants to play, they might actually get better with LeBron being out.
That's right.
Last season, he was the only All NBA selection with a negative plus minus. And so I do wonder, like, is it going to give Luka kind of more options and more to work with LeBron out? Obviously not for this team to have top end success in the playoffs. They got to have LeBron and they got to have him really good, but there's some volatility there because there's some resentment on LeBron's end. He didn't get the extension. A lot of things didn't go his way. How is this going to play out into the regular season? I'm pretty positive on Coach Redick thus far in his tenure, so I'll give them that, but I still have them 5th, and I'm also with you that I do think their 3 seed finish last season was kind of an aberration. But of course, to finish 5th in the West is nothing to sneeze at, and maybe Luka, we've got skinny Luka too, so is this like that Jokic-like pivot in his career where he's going to go up a whole nother level? I'd be curious to see. Alan, if you want any thoughts on the Lakers or give us your number 5th pick.
Yeah, we're actually all in agreement on that. I have the Lakers at 5. It's for all the things that you've all said, I almost had them a lot lower. But I think Luka, if healthy, is good enough to keep them in that 5 to 6 area, or really the 4 to 6 area. But they're not going to be a winning team until they actually build a roster that maximizes Luka's gameplay, and they don't have that right now. They need to put something together similar to what Houston had in 2018 with Harden, or what Dallas had when they went to the finals a couple of years ago. They need some strong defensive bigs, all that kind of stuff. And the Lakers don't have that. It's not DeAndre Ayton for sure.
Yeah, very concerning. I'll go ahead and go into my number 4 team, simply because it is in such opposition to Justin's number 10 team, and I've got the Minnesota Timberwolves at number 4. I don't know. I guess it's a continuity thing in some ways. It's my faith in their coach in some ways. It seems like we're hearing positive stuff about Julius Randle, so maybe we can have some continued stability from him. Your concerns, Justin, I don't think they're unfounded. This could go differently for them, and I think last season when we did predictions, I kind of underrated them a little bit simply because of their brand and their team name and that team's history. Oh, it's the Timberwolves. They're gonna turn it around again. I don't know. I guess I have a little bit more optimism with Ant-Man, and his abilities to sustain, as like a top threat in the league. But it's going to be interesting to see where they end up. Right now, I've got them just over the Lakers. Last season, they did finish at number 6, as you mentioned earlier, Justin. Alan, I'll throw to you. Who's your number 4 pick?
It's actually the same. It's the Wolves. And I felt weird putting them there because I have a lot of the same concerns that Justin has. But, I mean, Julius Randle stopped smoking weed, so I think he's going to be ready to go. I think, you know, they are a well-coached team. I think they'll do well in the regular season, just based on that continuity. Um, I, I haven't ready to make playoff predictions yet, but I think they probably end up going out sad in the first round, for all the reasons that Justin outlined.
Mm. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see what that matchup ends up being. Um, Justin, go ahead and give us your number 4.
Yeah, so number 4, I have your guys' team, the Rockets.
Oh, all right.
Last year finished 52-30, second in the West, lost in the first round. Obviously, things could be a lot different with some key additions. That includes Clint Capella, Dorian Finney-Smith. But the biggest headline here is Kevin Durant. And I feel like they're going to be a huge factor. I was toying around and putting him in the 3 position. I might regret that, especially what Matt was saying about the Warriors. But I have them at 4. I really do think the Rockets are going to be a factor. I'm still really high on Kevin Durant, even though ESPN is not. If you take a look at why they project to be worse than their total, even before Fred VanVleet suffered a torn ACL on September 22nd, Houston was projected to be under the model. Kevin Durant hasn't driven winning success at the level his box score stats would imply since being traded to the Suns at the 2023 deadline. The gap was exacerbated. However, once VanVleet was injured, the Rockets line has moved only a game from where it opened. As the reporter noted his analysis of the injury, Houston's projection dropped nearly four wins without the rock solid point guard. So I'm more high on the Rockets just because, again, of their youth and just because of Kevin Durant's leadership. But I want to ask you both, with Durant, is this kind of like if he can't win here, will this really affect his legacy? I mean, again, this is a young core with the Rockets. They've been one of the teams since we started this podcast have seen their maturation process, and you add this element that's a future Hall of Famer. And if it goes wrong here, do you think the blame will go on Durant? I mean, will this be kind of the biggest blemish of his career if they fall short? And I'm not even talking about they don't win a title, but if they just fall below expectations of getting bounced in the second round or in the first round like in a couple of years in a row.
Alan, go ahead. I'll let you tackle that.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about Kevin Durant's
We have.
legacy quite a bit, right? It does get to a point where you have to kind of, win. But I think Phoenix was a poorly constructed team and a poorly constructed environment for him. Um, I think Houston's a little different. Houston's built a little different than Phoenix, and I think you're seeing that even in the preseason. I mean, look, KD is not going to be he's not smiles and slapping people everywhere, and like he's not that guy. He is a sniper, um, and but the vibes seem really good with that team. Um, Honestly, I think they're going to be an offensive powerhouse this year. I'm concerned about their defense, but offensively, I think they're going to be insane. I don't think you're going to be able to stop them, but they're going to have trouble stopping people. I think is going to be part of the issue. Losing Dylan Brooks, and honestly, Jalen Green was a very underrated defender on the perimeter as well. So I think that's gonna. I think they're going to struggle there, particularly because they're going to be putting Reed Shepherd in a lot, and he's not quite ready, but I think he'll get there as the season progresses. I think there's going to be some growing pains with him. KD's legacy, I think, is I don't know. His legacy depends on who you talk to. Some people think of him as a snake, and some people think of him as the greatest player to ever play the game. I don't think anybody's opinion is going to be changed by this season.
Yeah, to add a few thoughts there. I think what KD will have in Houston that he hasn't had in a lot of other places is strong leadership at the top. He has not had that since he was in Golden State, really. So when you look at this situation for him, I don't think the Rockets are structured as well as the Warriors were during that insane run, but they're pretty dang close, especially with the respect that everyone has for Coach Udoka. They've got some really strong leadership there. And I think this is also emblematic. Like this season is kind of emblematic of KD's career and kind of what I think about when I think of him. And I certainly have my criticisms of KD. I probably have him lower in my all-time rankings than a lot of people do. But I think, what is it? His handle is Easy Money Sniper. That's kind of his career. He's one of the greatest mercenaries of all time. He's a guy that you can plug into any offense, and he's going to find a way to do something extremely efficient and productive. But when it comes to leadership and looking for him to dominate a situation like in the locker room, don't look to KD for that. I think that is a fair analysis of his career, trying to avoid any sort of personal insults or anything like that. I think KD is incredibly talented, and nobody would argue that. But the questions are with leadership. Like, I think for critics of KD, I think the two things they'll bring up, if they were particularly critical of him leaving OKC, I mean, that's one thing that's always going to stand out to critics. And then the other thing would be the situation where he decided to leave Golden State and kind of achieve his own thing in Brooklyn, and with the way that team flamed out with how much talent was put together on that team. Now, again, that was very interesting times across the country, as we all know, and it was just a strange time for those Nets, and unfortunately it just went really south really quickly for those KD-led teams. But that leaves a bit of a mark on his career, I think, when you look at criticisms. But again, you had a situation where Steve Nash had never coached before, and he's handed that super team. There was kind of the opposite of the stability that they had in Golden State from a structure standpoint. So I'm probably going off a little bit too much here. I do have the Rockets as one of my three kind of what I would say are guaranteed on my list top shelf teams in the West. So Justin, I want to kind of rein this back in and ask you, who do you have as your number 3 ranked team?
Yeah.
Above the Rockets?
I like the Warriors.
Okay.
Yeah, they're number 3 to me. Last year, 48 and 34, 7th in the West. I am a big fan of Jimmy Butler. Call it bias. I think the 3 teams, there's like 2 of the teams on this list, it's pure bias. And I think that's due to Jimmy Butler. Despite just, how prickly he is, I do think he performs. If you take a look,
it's not a contract year. So usually he's doing pretty good if it's not a contract year.
Fair. And I just think if you take a look at their additions of Seth Curry and especially Al Horford, I know like he's older, but looking at the stats here, like, with the Celtics, very effective, and his production with the Celtics was around the same in terms of 9 points and 6 rebounds or so. And I think that's going to be a huge factor with this Warriors team. And I think with Steve Kerr, they're just excellently coached. And I think they're going to find a way to get a lot of wins. And I don't buy this notion that Steph Curry's washed. Like, you take a look at the last 2 seasons, he played 70 games last season, 74 the year before. He's getting older. So to me, I would say his production's gone down slightly, a little bit. I see a little bit downticks of his production there, but not much. And so I just think that if he remains healthy, he's going to still be one of the top players in this league. And again, my bias, I think he's the greatest shooter who ever lived. And so I just think with that, I think they're going to be a factor in terms of having a high win total. Now, again, health plays into that. They have an old roster in terms of their veteran core. So I think your concerns are valid in terms of, again, injuries. That's certainly going to derail that. But I am a believer that the Warriors, if things go their way, they will be the 3rd seed. And I think this will be kind of like I don't know. It's kind of weird because everybody's kind of dismissing it. This is the last hurrah, but I don't necessarily see it that way. But we'll see.
Yeah, I'm glad you also mentioned that the Curry brothers are uniting for the first time in their careers. That's pretty cool to see. That's I don't think that's all that big of a deal in terms of the X's and O's when push comes to shove, but it is a really cool, like, you have the literal Splash Brothers together now. Pretty cool to see. Alan, I'll throw to you for your 3rd ranked team. if you
It's
don't
the
mind.
Rockets. I have the Rockets at number 3. I talked up a little bit about earlier about their offensive capabilities. Uh, that double big lineup that they have, I think, is going to be lethal. Um, Last night they started Steven Adams, Şengün, Kevin Durant, Jabari Smith Jr., and Amin Thompson. Smallest guy on the court is their best defender. It's 6'7". Everybody has like a 7-foot wingspan. They blew the that lineup, destroyed the Pelicans. Um, uh, and so I don't know. I don't know how you counter that, especially if Jabari Smith makes this leap that it look his stroke is looking really good.
Working out with KD.
Working out with KD. Yep. He still isn't the best dribbler, but his shooting looks good. Amon is actually, well, he was 2 or 3 on 3-pointers last night and took them confidently. Um, Şengün didn't even have to do much last night, and they were just they won the minutes that counted. That was a close game at the end, but that was, bench play, fourth quarter guys at the end of the bench. I'm pretty high on this team, even with the Van Fleet injury. But I think there's going to be growing pains, which is why I don't have them higher. As Reed and Amon and Tari Eason, who looks to be the other guy that they're going to have bringing the ball up, learn how to kind of play point forward and guard.
Yeah, Alan. So I agree with what you said about the Rockets there. I'm a Rockets fan as well. And my sort of zag with this team, I guess, is that I know Fred VanVleet has been crucial to their growth, and particularly this team's Achilles heel was turnovers before he was put on that roster, and he helped stabilize that. I mean, at the same time, I think Fred VanVleet kind of lowers your ceiling to a certain extent to have him as a starter on your team, and I mean that with all due respect. He's a great player. But tell me, Alan, how the Rockets are going to manage this point guard situation, and maybe why my zag is incorrect, or if you agree with it, that's fine too.
I think it's going to be some growing pains. I think they'll run Reed and Amon at point, but I think they're going to do a Denver Nuggets kind of style and run what we're calling the Shin Hub offense, and have everything go through the guy who was the best player at Eurobasket, and dominated, Jokic and Giannis, and played really well. I think they're gonna run a lot of stuff through him finally. Um, so turnovers might go up because he can get a little loose with some of those passes. But I think it's going to be point guard by committee. And then I think if Reed projects like he's supposed to project, I think by the All-Star break, you'll start to see him really show some growth and improvement. The shooting is already there.
Most likely lost Allen.
All right, so a lot of good points there. Oh, looks like we got you back, Alan. All right. So Justin, let's go ahead. I think we're probably going to have some agreement here at the end of our list. We've got the same 2 teams remaining. Justin, who do you have at number 2 at the West?
Yeah, in the interest of time, got the Denver Nuggets. Couldn't put them at number 1, but I think they're going to come back in a big way. Attended their media day. They seem very optimistic. The additions they get is Bruce Brown is back, very happy. Tim Hardaway Jr., Cameron Johnson, and then Jonas Valanciunas, all happy to be there. I think this is going to be a team where at media day they were saying with Jamal Murray and with Jokic to improve their communication and take more of a leadership role as players in the locker room because Mike Malone's not there. And I think with Adelman, he is very more of a low-key type of guy. And I don't think he's going to be such a force of nature when the team is struggling as much compared to Malone. So I think where this team might need a kick in the butt, I think Jokic and Murray might need to be in those leadership positions. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I think it's very curious for a team that recently won the title, how this season has been more about the vibes, which tells me they're very unhappy with Malone, which he's a very prickly guy. I get the sense, and maybe I'm wrong. I mean, with Popovich, he's prickly too, but players love playing for him. So, I mean, it can go either way. But I just feel with the Nuggets that with Adelman, it just seems more of a relaxed atmosphere. And I do like them as a title contender, and I think they're going to be very formidable if everybody stays healthy. It's going to be a very exciting Western Conference Finals if they face OKC. But yeah, can't put them above in that number one spot just due to, I think, just the depth and just how OKC's on a roll. But I think they're going to be a very formidable challenger. And I think, I don't know how many regular season games they have against each other, but I think that's going to be one of the most exciting matchups this season, see those two teams go at it.
Yeah, and to your point about the vocal leadership, I mean, we saw Jokic at the end of the season, last season, take on that hat almost immediately after Coach Malone left. Like, I remember their close game with the Timberwolves towards the very end of the season. I think it was a multiple overtime game. Jokic being a lot more vocal from the sidelines. So maybe he does kind of step into that a little bit more, and maybe Jamal joins him in that. If they have healthy and productive Jamal Murray, I think they will be just ecstatic about that in and of itself. Alan, who do you have at your number 2 spot?
I have Denver. And we talked about it last season. I like the Adelman hire, making him the full-time coach. He comes from his dad was a genius coach offensively for sure. His brother was a genius consultant. He was, the guy that Spo went to when he had the Heatles to try and figure it all out. He's unfortunately passed on,
Oh, no.
in the past 10 years, but I think Adelman is got that genius offensive gene going. I think they're going to throw some crazy stuff at us. It might look a little like early 2000s Sacramento on offense, having Jokic at the elbow, stuff like that. Some maybe even throw out some old triangle stuff. I think there's going to be some really cool stuff to come out of Denver, some innovation that maybe Malone wasn't too keen on doing. So I'm high on the Nuggets. If you ask me to pick between them and the Thunder for who wins the West, I will give you probably a different answer each time you ask.
Makes sense.
I'm with you, and I think that's one thing I'll be looking at very early in the season is, how do these teams start, and how is that chemistry on the Nuggets? How quickly can they get that? Because really, you imagine last postseason, I mean, if Jokic just has another shooter or two, that series could have been very, very different, and he has that now. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to say, yeah, the Nuggets are going to be lower in terms of total regular season wins, given they are an older roster compared to the Thunder, which everyone pretty much is. But in a playoff series, these guys might be able to get the Thunder based on their experience and maybe more consistency with their offense now that they have those new pieces. I'm in alignment with you guys. I have the Nuggets at number 2 as well, but I do have them hitting the over in terms of their over-under wins projection. Assuming decent health, I think Jokic is going to feel a little bit more like he's able to coast this year compared to like the past 2 seasons even. So I think things are looking bright for the Nuggets. So that means all of us have the Thunder at number 1. I don't think that's any major shock. One thing I'll say about the Thunder when you compare the start of this season to last season is that they have much better health going into this season. I mean, we missed half of season of Chet Holmgren last season, so they could even raise their ceiling a bit more. You'd imagine the only thing really standing between this team on paper is themselves. Are they going to have that drive to push through the regular season again? They do have youth, which I think energetically can be an advantage. Maturity could be a disadvantage when it comes to a long season, but they have a mature leader in SGA, and a brilliant coach, of course. So, I mean, sky's the limit for this Thunder team. A lot of people have been saying this team could and should make a run at 70 wins. I don't think that's ridiculous. Even though, it would still be surprising to see a team register that number. It's within the realm of possibility. That's how good this team is statistically with the defense they bring. And I think they're only going to get better offensively compared to last season. So that's kind of my quick take on the Thunder. Alan, do you have other thoughts on the Thunder to add?
Yeah, I think real quick, I think they're going to be have another great regular season. I think they play well in that situation. I'm always a little concerned about Chet's health because he has missed out of his 3 seasons. He's missed significant time. Um, again, he's a guy who's slight and doesn't have a lot of padding. When he takes a fall, it hurts. Um, the thing about the Thunder, though, is you saw how dominant they were in the regular season, but they were not that dominant in the playoffs. And I will tell you, they were a Tyrese Halliburton Achilles away from blowing Game 7. I still think Indiana wins that game if Tyrese doesn't tear his Achilles.
That's fair.
So the playoffs are a different story for them now. Does the experience of winning give them an edge now? Do they have that kind of veteran know-how, and they know how to win the playoffs? Maybe. I want to see it. But I'm not sold on them necessarily winning the title. That's why I go back and forth between them and Denver. And sometimes if you ask me, I'll say Houston. And then other times I'll say New York. So I, I'm not sold on them in the playoffs yet.
Yeah.
Justin, any additional thoughts on the Thunder before we kind of give our just sort of any general ideas about the West?
Yeah, that's fair. And I think to that point, you got to wonder about the championship hangover too. And I just think the team has enough depth to where I think they will become the number 1 seed. But I think, Alan, you make a good point. I don't think we're in an era of seeing these dominant teams be so much better than the rest of the conference. I feel like there's enough vulnerabilities for lower seeds to exploit that and beat them in a 7-game series. And I think that makes it very exciting. And I think but I do think the Thunder will be the number 1 seed. So I agree with both of you. 70 wins, I don't know about that, just due to just that championship hangover that I think they're going to experience. That wouldn't surprise me if they struggle during just the first half of the season. And I kind of predict them even struggling during the NBA Cup, just due to kind of them just acclimated to everything. I think from a media pressure standpoint, they don't have to worry about that because the national media will be focused on the bigger market teams, so they don't have to sweat it. But I just think in terms of their own expectations, I think they might have a little bit of a hangover, but I do think they'll end up with the number 1 seed when it's all said and done.
Right on. So now I'll ask you guys kind of for your general Western Conference thoughts. We can mention our lists. I think we all had Utah, New Orleans, Phoenix, Portland, Sacramento as our bottom 5 teams. Then our lists get very different. For me, 10 is Memphis, 9 is Golden State, 8 is Dallas, 7 is San Antonio, 6 is the Clippers. Then my top 5 is Lakers at 5, Minnesota at 4, and my top shelf of the Western Conference that I'm locking in these 3, Houston, Denver, and OKC. And I do think the last thing I'll say about the Western Conference, it really is OKC at the tippy top. I think this team is driven and in that category where they want to be remembered as an iconic team of all time. Statistically, they have some cases for it from their regular season last year, not the postseason, as you guys mentioned. And I think that's what maybe continues to drive them. And also the fact that they don't get that media attention, maybe that makes them hungry to go out there and get some media attention. I think they're too young to be getting this next season fatigue and things like that more veteran teams that win the title experience in that next season. I do think they can, even in the Western Conference, kind of coast to the top. They have enough depth that they can rest guys as needed and still do pretty well. So I do think this OKC team is kind of an anomaly, as everyone does. You know, you give a tip of the cap to Sam Presti for that. But you have to play the games. You have to see how this plays out. I agree, Justin. I wouldn't pencil in 70 wins for this team, but I do think it's not going to be shocking if we do see that come to fruition. Yeah. And that's the last thing that I'll say about the West. You guys, I'll just give some time to each of you for any last thoughts you have about the West, and if you want to share your list, and then we'll wrap. So Justin, I'll go to you first.
Yeah. I concur. And I think this is going to be a big year for Wemby. This is where we see his ascension or not, as kind of like everybody's talking about, like we had a whole podcast about this, about the face of the league. But I think a lot of momentum is on his side, especially in a market that I know with the Spurs, they're, dealing with the whole new arena deal this past summer. I think for Wemby, I'm very interested to see where he can take the Spurs and push them up into the higher echelon of the league. And then what's going to happen with a bunch of kind of these aging players with LeBron and Luka, I'm very interested in. And then in my neck of the woods with Jokic, does he finally kind of get the credit that he deserves? I mean, as one of the best players of all time, I think he doesn't get that. It's very unfortunate. And I just hope maybe this season cracks through as he becomes more of an ascendant superstar, even though the dude just won the MVP 3 times. I mean, I don't know how much more he has to do. But I'm interested in seeing those storylines play out within the West.
Man, and I mean, imagine a title where he goes through this historically great by the numbers OKC team to get to the finals and get a championship. That would certainly be a huge feather in his cap, and he almost did it last season. He was very close.
Sure.
Even with that roster in turmoil and the coaching change right before the postseason. So you never know. Good points there. All good things to look for. And Alan, we'll wrap with you for the final remarks before we sign off here.
I'm going to just say parity.
Exactly.
I think there's so much parity in the West. I mean, yes, OKC is at the top regular season wise, but I think playoff wise, they're on par with some of the other teams. I think 2 through 11 could really be anybody. And we varied a lot. From 4 through 11. From 4 through 11, we varied a lot. So I think we could be right about some of our kind of shocking projections, and they could go the other way. The Clippers could end up at third in the West, and Houston at 11. You could see stuff like that happen just based on, not even based on injuries, but just based on all sorts of stuff. So that's definitely where I'm sitting with it. Just parity.
Well said. Well, guys, always a pleasure. I love these prediction shows. So you guys, listeners and viewers, thank you for sticking with us. Let us know where your picks are for the Western Conference. Am I crazy for putting the Warriors at number 9? Are the Clippers at 10? Is that a crazy pick? Memphis at 10. Is that nuts? Are they going to be way higher? Is Ja Morant going to have an MVP-esque season to turn things around here? Let us know your guys' thoughts. For Justin Goodrum, for Alan Muenzler, I'm Matt Thomas. Stay tuned. More in the lab coming your way very soon.